Do you want to introduce? I mean, I feel like everyone knows me, so and you're both kind of new to Product Agape. So if you do you want to introduce yourselves? I can start. I'll introduce myself first.
Sure.
I'm Esther. Everyone knows that. Yeah, that's me. Go ahead.
I'm Agape. I joined Project Agape a few months ago as the program coordinator, and I'm so excited.
And my name is Joyce Wamambo. I've been volunteering for a few months now, and I was really excited to be a part of a group that just really focuses on like Black survivors and Black empowerment. So yeah, that's me.
Yeah, thank you guys. Just to note that Agape's name is Agape and Project Agape. Yeah. When Agape asked to be in Project Agape, I was like, nah, this is like some kind of, I know it's God, because how did this happen? And then,
it's a sign.
It's a sign, yeah. So I'm just, first of all, I want to just say I'm grateful to have the both of you here in this conversation. These types of talks are usually pretty triggering, and even within that, like, there are things that we've had experiences with. So I do want to appreciate the both of you and just your time and even the fact that you're sharing and engaging in this. I think it's so important. So thank you for being here.
Thank you for having us.
It's such an honor.
Yeah. So I guess we can, before we get started, I did want to briefly go over some content warning. And if you folks want to add anything, feel free to do so. So we'll talk about the bulk of this conversation is this stereotype that is the strong Black woman. So that will be brought up quite a bit. Some talk of trauma on Black women, the healthcare system, on mental health. So if anything feels triggering to you, please feel free to, you can just pause. You don't have to listen to the whole thing if it starts to get uncomfortable. Just do what feels good to you. And yeah, are there any other triggers you think we should bring up, or that covers it?
I think that's pretty good.
I think so, yeah. Maybe even like just racism, like systemic racism is always kind of like an ongoing theme.
For sure.
Very true. Yeah, so we'll get into the conversation. We're going to be talking a lot today about Black women and that idea of the stereotype, I would say, of our resiliency as it's seen. Not like, I know resiliency is positive, but in how it's seen in a negative way that affects Black women. So the idea of being a strong Black woman, the idea of how the pain of Black women is minimized and how we're like an afterthought in a lot of cases. So we're going to spend this time kind of dissecting that notion. And I guess the first thing that I wanted to talk about is the idea of, what is this stereotype how has it been historically perceived about Black women? Like, what is the strong Black woman notion and how does it affect Black women? What do you guys think?
Yeah, so as Black women, I feel like we're seen as like almost like a superhuman, where we have to like go through all these things. We don't necessarily have to show like the hardships that we're going through because it's not deemed as like really a hardship, but more so like just something along the way that we're going through. And like because of that, we're not really comforted. We're not really, I don't know how to explain it, but we're not seen as humans that need to be comforted or that need to be taken care of, or because we can take care of ourselves by ourselves, right? And we see that in a lot of situations, such as like in healthcare, where we're prescribed less medication, but even by doctors, just because we're seen as like being able to take it more than other types of people. So that's what I perceive the strong Black woman as. I think that it's bad. I think that we should move it. It does show a negative side of resilience, like Esther said. Resiliency is really good, and the fact that we're able to be resilient is amazing, but not to the point where like I don't know how to finish that, but not to the point where like we're not like, it's just like we're not cared about. And I agree with that. I think I see it on the basis of culture and how like our upbringing comes into it. Obviously, it's very systemic and society plays a big role in it. But I'm even thinking back to like the times where like my mom, for instance, would be like, don't cry about this, and not because it's not worth crying about, whatever, just because it makes you look weak. Like, why am I
7 or 8 and having to be strong? Why can't I like express my emotions and be strong about things, or be allow myself to be weak? And that's why we have this whole thing on social media now about like soft Black women, like you have to be soft because we haven't been allowed to be soft. And now I feel like everyone's like, wait, why are we, who are we trying to fool with this? Like, no, we don't have to be this way. But, you know, that's how I see it. Do you want to?
Yeah, for sure. I think it's really challenging to be a Black woman because a lot of times it's like we don't have the space to be. You know, it's like when we think about anything surrounding like women's rights or anything like that, usually it's like we're talking about like white women and they have like the opportunity, the space to really like talk about like their feelings, opinions, and also to be heard. But when we talk about any sort of like Black issues, now we're looking at like Black men, you know, usually it's like Black men are in the forefront. And for that reason, I feel like being a Black woman, sometimes our experiences are negated, you know, nobody's really understanding, you know, what it looks like for us if we're trying to navigate the systems that were not built for us. So when I think about like the strong Black women, as you said, it's all Esther tweets, like you have to be strong, like you have to show up, you have to do you have to work 3 times as hard because not only are you struggling and fighting like you know, like all the issues around like racism as a whole, but you're also looking at like gender, so like looking at the intersectionality of those two things and trying to figure out a way to survive. It's really challenging, and it's a huge burden to carry because a lot of times not only are you just, you know, carrying this burden for yourself, but you're also thinking about the next generation and the people that are going to come after you, because we're all connected, I think, as Black women, but at the same time, we don't always have the space to be. And that's really evident in like the healthcare system. It's evident even within families. Like you're saying, like, you know, my mom would always say, you have to show up. You literally have to work so hard because just to be seen, I have to literally put in so much more effort. So I think I agree with you as well too, that like it could be hurtful because it doesn't give us the space to you know, take a step back. I guess it doesn't give us the space to breathe, the space to really feel things, because we always have to show up and show up. Yeah. So that's what I think about that.
Yeah, that's very well put. Both your points are very well put. I want to dive in a little bit, and if you allow me to just get a little bit personal and talk about, obviously, to your discretion. If you don't want to share, feel free. I'm a big sharer, so I'm going to share. But about your experiences with this stereotype. Pride Agape is very, very like, we're always keen on, you know, leading with vulnerability, and because our work is very peer focused, when we're doing these things, we like to focus on our experiences too, because, you know, it's about us. Like the work we do is for us, by us. So I wanted to ask what your experiences have been with this stereotype, and how has it affected the way you've kind of like moved through your lives and accessing institutional support, and even in like social settings, like even with like dating or whatever it might be. Have you had any? I'm sure we have. It's not even have you. It's what are you comfortable sharing about your experiences with this?
For me, I never really dug deep into it, but now that I'm like in this conversation, it really makes me think of how like I don't show emotions a lot. Like I show emotions of like happiness and joy, but like I can't think of a time where like I've actually cried or like let it go in front of my friends or even my family, which is so weird to me because I do have a lot of emotions. Like I just bottle it up. So I guess it's kind of like, I never like was told like, oh, let your emotions out or like, don't bottle it up. Like I was never told any of that, but I guess it's kind of just been like part of me to kind of keep it bottled up. And obviously everything that you have, it probably stems from like how you're growing up or things that you see online. So I guess like that, the takedown that I can take from that is like, it's been ingrained in me somehow. And I don't like that. Like I'm still trying to like find my way to show emotions, because I can cry to my friends. Like they're not going to shut me down. Right. But I don't know how to explain it. It's just, I don't, even though I have those emotions, I just don't do it. Like I just want to be always seen as strong, fearless, and just like always doing things to key. And I never want to like show my emotions, because I find that people will seem like I'm vulnerable. People will make me feel like, oh, you really you really are like that. Like you do things like that. Like you have emotions, and I don't know. I need to work on that, but
yeah. I mean, thank you for sharing that, because I think it's also, you know, it's very validating, because I've also kind of had a similar experience too. Like, you know, growing up, I think it was like whenever you were experiencing a positive emotion, that was always, key, you know, like if you're happy, excited, that was something that was celebrated. But like, you know, the negative emotions sometimes, you know, it almost felt like there was no space to really feel those deeply. And so I think for me, like it's been a journey, I guess, to get to where I'm at. And a part of that also kind of contributes to like my work that I did in the nonprofit sector, because it really forced me to also look within. And I found that I had no problem expressing any sort of like positive feelings and emotions, because that was always celebrated. But when it came to like, you know, like not the not so positive ones, so like feeling angry and, you know, being vulnerable was something that was really challenging for me. And that showed up a lot in my intimate relationships, because I felt like it was really hard for me to open up, you know. It was coming from like a place of fear, because it's like, you know, it comes with like a lot of judgment, and I also didn't know how to express it. Like, you know, I think something that I'm still trying to unpack and, you know, maybe like learn from is like, how do you express anger in a positive way? Because even if I'm feeling really angry and you see me, I'm probably smiling, you know, because it's just like I never really had the opportunity to really be able to learn how to do that in a positive way. So I think it's like you said, it's quite validating to hear your experiences. I think like, you know, it's been hard, and it's something that I feel like it's always going to be ongoing. You're trying to figure it out, you know, as you get older and, you know, different stages in life, but it definitely shows up a lot in my intimate relationships.
Thank you for sharing. Thank you both for sharing. I think for me, I'm going to obviously switch it back to the gender-based violence lens a little bit. I think for me, just my experience with trauma was very, so like and I speak about this very openly, but it's very like, I've experienced like my family intergenerational trauma, and they have dealt with it, they being my mom, grandmother, everyone in their own way. But when I chose to kind of disclose to them, they kind of wanted me to deal with it in their way. And if I was still living in Nigeria, maybe I would have. But when I moved to Canada, I realized, okay, you know, I can be a little bit more emotional. I can show a little bit more. I started things like therapy, counseling, because like, I don't know, I didn't have access to that in Nigeria. But when I told my mom, for instance, it was very much so like, I hear you. I hear what you're feeling, what you went through, but I need you to keep it in you. I need you to not like just keep it pushing, basically, like just do your thing. Like there was no conversation on, you know, like, do you want to get help? Like what can I do to help you? Let's talk it out. It's, you know, right, you can cry on your own, but just keep it to yourself. Like, and which is another reason why like even starting Partagapi was not even a thing that she wanted me to do, because it's like, you're putting yourself out there. You're putting your emotions out there. You're not from this country, first of all. You're a Black woman. We don't do that. You keep it to yourself. Like, she fully said, you know, leave this for the white people. And I'm like, it shouldn't just be white people that are allowed to talk about things and share their emotions. Like, it's not fair that from a cultural standpoint that I'm being told that I can't do certain things, when it actually helps to share and to express yourself. It's healing, and it's contributed to my healing, because before Partagapi, I didn't even think I could ever like get past that stage of like, I'm just in deep sadness and distraught. And then when I got to a space where I can talk about it and actually share and not feel like judged for sharing, because everyone is like itching. Like when you start sharing, when you're around Black women and you start sharing, everyone's like, oh my gosh, like I want this. That's all, like, you know, let's keep doing it. And I think that just kind of creates community as well too, because we all want to be able to share and do these things. We're not brought up in a way that in an environment that allows it or encourages it. And it just, I don't know, it's sad. And I think this conversation is so important, because we're able to help people to learn more about this, but also shift the dynamic for the future, like people in the future, like our children, other people's children, because we're in this mindset where, you know, let's talk about it, let's share about it, let's express ourselves, I would say.
Which is important, because sometimes it's normalized in like certain cultures to not talk about that.
For sure.
Yeah, I agree. I want to switch it to the healthcare sector, which is why we have the lovely Joyce here today. Joyce has done extensive research on Black maternal health. And a big part of this conversation, a big part of just a strong Black woman motion is on the healthcare system and Black pain, I would say. So based on your research, what have you learned or what have you discovered about, the trivialization and minimization of Black pain and Black maternal healthcare or Black healthcare in general?
So I did my research on Black maternal health, as you mentioned. So what I wanted to see is really get an understanding of what are the lived experiences of Black women when they're experiencing maternal health services. And we know that when you're, going through like birthing process, you're pregnant, it's quite vulnerable. It's a very vulnerable state to be in. And like currently in Canada, we don't collect any race-based data. So we don't even know what their experiences are like in terms of like, maternity or morbidity rates and things like that. So I just wanted to hear from their own perspective, what does that look like? What has it been like for you when you're accessing these services? And from what I gathered from the research that I've done, and actually a lot of my research was kind of got a lot of inspiration from Patricia Hill Collins' book on like Black feminist thought, because it really looks at like Black women's experiences and how they navigate different systems, including the healthcare system. And so for a lot of Black women, I think a big part of it is systemic. We know that accessing the healthcare system is very challenging because the system wasn't built for Black women. We know that even when we're talking about like doctors and like healthcare providers, sometimes they don't even have the knowledge to really know how certain conditions show up on Black skin. So when you're dealing with a system that doesn't always doesn't understand, your experiences, doesn't understand the cultural standpoint of like how you show up in these systems, or in a situation where you already feel like you're going to have to, show up and like fight for yourself, I guess. It's already quite vulnerable to be in that space. So from what I found, a lot of Black women, their perceptions of the healthcare system was really influenced by like Eurocentric perspectives of what the Black woman should look like. So that was coming from the standpoint like, if Black women has to be strong, or if we're thinking about like social media or in the media as a whole, Black women are portrayed in a very negative way sometimes. And so because of all these like biases and stuff like that, when Black women access services, sometimes it's easy for healthcare providers to have a certain perception already without looking at the person as they are. And so when Black women are navigating that space, what I did find is that some people do rely on the strong Black woman notion, because for them, I guess they rely on it to find strength, to be able to kind of go through these certain like difficult challenges. It's like for them, it's like it's empowering in a way. And then on the other side of that as well too, like some people were like it's difficult because it's like I'm already expected to be the strong person that I don't have the space to feel vulnerable. I don't have the space to be like I need someone to help me while I'm going through this thing, because there's this expectation that you're going to have to do it yourself in a way. So just kind of, I don't want to talk for too loud, but I think, long story short, I think it's hard to navigate a space where, the Black woman is not always put first. And it's really even more challenging when you're going through something really vulnerable where it's scary because you don't know. You have to rely on other people to really give you the best possible care. But then when you think about racism and systemic racism biases, especially, it's so easy for Black women to feel like they don't have the power. They don't have the power to be equally involved in their own birthing experience. So that was the one thing that I found. And I thought it was really interesting too, that like a lot of Black women really rely on like their networks when it comes to just like accessing the healthcare system. I think it's like a place for empowerment and support, because we know that sometimes when you do navigate, the healthcare system as a whole, you don't always get that positive support. So they rely on their own networks, whether it's family or friends or a combination of people that really show up and help them with not only providing like support in terms of like food and, showing up, but also in terms of knowledge, in terms of like navigating, what should I do when I'm experiencing this? Who do I talk to? So like, it's like a wealth of information that's being like shared within the I guess the women-centered networks. And I think that's something that's been present within like the Black family for several generations. So I thought that was really cool.
That's so interesting. I think I even have I never thought about it that way. So like my aunt is a doctor, and every time I go into like the ER, I always know it's gonna be a hot mess. They're gonna piss me off. So whenever it's my time, like my turn to like see the doctor, I'll call her and she's like on the phone. I feel like, maybe the doctor's not happy because it's like, why are you here if you're gonna, obviously. But I'm always calling her to say, hey, auntie, this is what they're saying. This is my symptoms.
Right.
What do you think?
Yeah.
And then she'll tell the doctor like, oh, you should test her for so and so and so and so. And he's trying to like argue with my aunt on the phone. And I'm like, no, but like, you're saying I should go home and take Tylenol. I'm like crying in pain.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's more than what you think it is. So the least you can do is do a little blood test and see if it is what it is.
Yeah.
And they just kind of like push back. And I'm like, no, but I'm in pain. Like, Tylenol is not going to fix this. And what do you know? They listened to her and they did it. And it wasn't just a Tylenol situation.
Yeah.
And it's just so sad that like, that's my choice. Like I have to, what if people that don't have this? Cause like having people you can get knowledge on healthcare from is a privilege. And a lot of people are not able to. A lot of people go in and they get told Tylenol and, take Tylenol and then that's what they get until they're in so much pain that like, God forbid, like something worse comes out of it. But I think that's so interesting. And it's really sad because the healthcare system is a place, and even in the word healthcare, our bodies, our health is probably the most important part of our beings. And we go
health
into these
wealth.
Places. Pardon?
Health is wealth.
Yeah,
for sure.
health, exactly. And we go there to seek support and care and to just not be understood, to not even be cared about, to be ignored. It's very frustrating. It's incredibly frustrating. Yeah.
I could actually see this in my sister's pregnancy. She gave birth to a little baby boy a couple of days ago, so I'm very excited about that. But during the whole process, this entire conversation, I completely could see it in that because as she was experiencing like her first trimester, horrible situations, horrible symptoms. She was just not feeling well. She was having like obviously like you do experience a little bit of pain when you're pregnant, but she was experiencing like great pain, like in terms of like dysmenorrhea for like menstrual systems. Like she was experiencing a lot more than it should be. So me, like the whole family, obviously like when you're not in someone's situation, you don't really know how to help them. You don't really know what to do. So we kind of like, not like push her away, but like we wouldn't know how to help. Right. The doctors are saying you're fine. Everything's fine. But she's like, I'm not fine. Like something's going on. No one's listening to her. So thank God, like, I'm pretty sure it's the grace of God that helped her to get through her first trimester and her second trimester. But she was experiencing some really bad symptoms. And then the day of her delivery, was not the worst. I was not about to say the worst day, but like it was the worst pain like she could ever imagine. Like it was really bad. And to the point where like, my mom's a nurse, right? So she came with my sister, think like your aunt's a doctor. She came to help out. And the nurses, when they didn't know that my mom was a nurse, they kind of like left her aside. Like they didn't like, this is all from the perspective of my sister and my mom. They kind of like didn't focus on her that well. And there were other people giving birth as well. But so I understand, like, obviously you can't give her full attention, but they weren't really the amount of times that they gone to her room before they found out my mom was a nurse and after, drastic change. Like it was like, oh, like we kind of like have to like actually work because we have someone who knows the information and could come. And it was like, wow, like, okay, so we can see that. We can see that that's not bad. And then one point during the pregnancy, while she was trying to get the baby out, the baby's heart rate was going down, not drastically, but it was going down little by little by little. My mom's like, this is not normal. I'm going to tell the doctor, like, hello, like, you need to come fix this. The doctor was not doing anything. Nothing was happening until it got to the point where it was a very drastic change. And then the doctor was like, okay, we're going to have to like do a C-section. We're going to have to do something for this. But it just kind of makes me think like, okay, if my mom wasn't there, you're gonna leave it all the way to the end where like the baby's heart rate isn't even there for you to actually make that decision. Like it's just like, I feel like we're always put in the back when it comes to situations like this, and it's ridiculous, actually.
It is.
So yeah, that's an example I could give about my sister's pregnancy. And I just remembered when you talked about your aunt and the doctor and your symptoms. So,
and it is crazy too, because like even when we think about C-section rates, like Black women are more likely to get a C-section, and it really frustrates me because even I've heard too, like whenever you do like access the healthcare system, a lot of times there's this like, assumption that like if you're Black, you're low income or you're not educated enough, so they already kind of put you in a box. And I remember even one of the women that I interviewed, she was saying they were asking her if she's homeless, if she has a place to stay. So already it's like, you have to, just by looking at you, they already have all these assumptions that you don't know what's best for you and your health, so it's a very frustrating place to be.
It is. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you for sharing.
I'm so glad that your sister is doing well. Oh, healthcare system, Black women, babies is not.
I literally told her, "Do you just want to do a birth at home? Because I don't trust.
I think I'm gonna.
I don't trust doctors at all.
I'm afraid of the hospital, honestly.
Absolutely.
So in the interest of time, I guess I kind of wanted to. It's a closing, but it's a little bit of a long one about leaving this conversation with some myths that we can debunk, or just some ways that we can kind of leave people thinking about this notion. So as Black women, how do we begin to debunk these myths for ourselves, for our communities, in order to support ourselves both holistically and into the next generation? What do you guys think?
That is a good question. I think, I feel like the best way to start is to really just be kind of aware of, the issue and how that shows up for you. And I think a big part of it, as I mentioned before, I think there's something beautiful about Black women coming together, or just Black women supporting each other. So finding ways to show up and teach each other. And I think that's going to look different for different people, because in my opinion, I don't think that, it would be as useful to be don't do this. This is terrible, because there's some people that potentially find strength, but maybe the way that they're, using, or when they find strength, it's based on a different scenario. But when we're talking about, having to deal with mental health, pain, that kind of thing, I feel like it's really important to acknowledge and recognize that those experiences are very valid and everybody else is going through it. So I think finding a way to kind of provide that sense of community is really important, because I find whenever I'm going through a hard time, just knowing that there's somebody else that's also or has experienced it just makes me feel less alone. So finding ways to kind of spread that knowledge or share experiences, I think it's really important, especially with Black women. It's sharing your own experience is very I don't know, it sits better with me at least, and I like to think with other people as well too. So finding ways to create that space, whether it's connecting with a friend and just kind of sharing what you've heard, or whether it's on social media, because I know sometimes too, you can connect with people that live in different parts of the country or the world. Just being able to be this was my experience, I hope this can, I don't know, help somebody else, or maybe they can use that to find strength and to heal. So
I think that's really important. Even in the community space, I think one thing that I always say is, when someone kind of discloses to you, if you have the capacity to, sometimes it helps to offer, if you can, offer support, or offer to be there as a support or listening ear. Because I just know from experience, because of how we've been brought up in this notion of the strong Black woman, not everyone's super comfortable with just sharing. A lot of people feel like they're burdening because they're asking. And then they feel like, I'm being a burden if I ask for support, if I ask someone to listen to me. So if you're able to, just with the extra pushes, just say, I'm here if you want to talk, listen, if you want to whatever, I'll be here. If you need someone to do research with you for whatever it is, I'll be here to support you. Because that really creates that collectiveness too, where we have each other to shift this dynamic and start these conversations and change the way that we see things right now.
For me, I think that it's equally important for us to share our experiences and our knowledge, as it is important for people that aren't experiencing the same as we are to also just want to go out and learn about that. It is our duty to show people this is what we're going through. But it's also the duty of others to want to help out. It shouldn't just be our responsibility only. I think that like, for example, in a lot of statistics, like there's a lot of things that when I was looking for information for this podcast, there's a lot of things that said like Black women, there's a statistic that shows that Black women do endure less pain than white women, this and that, this and that. And I'm like, so you're actively putting this information out for people to think that this is true.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't understand why like all these things are out, and then people are going to be like, oh, this is true. Like, I'm going to go put this in a medical textbook. And then now medical doctors are thinking the same thing. And it's just like, it's a rabbit hole. So like once there's one thing that's on the internet that's false, there's going to be more things that back up that information. So it's just to terminate all of that once at once. I think that people should just get to the source of the problem instead of like trying to overcompensate by us like going out there and teaching people that. But we like I don't know how to explain. I don't know how to put it, but
And I also think, sorry, just you sharing that, it just kind of made me think as well too that I think the problem a lot of times when it comes to research is that when we think about like policymakers or researchers that are focusing on like maternal health or just any other issue, there's not a lot of researchers that focus on Black research. And so partly the issue is that too, like maybe, you know, a lot of Black scholars are not looking into it. Just like what's happening within Black people, or they don't have access to be able to do that. And then secondly, I think if like a white person was going to do research on like Black people, then it's coming from a very different perspective. And so because there's already all these different barriers that make it challenging for Black women to be able to research what's going on and provide not only research, but be able to use that knowledge, share it, even just to like submit like a journal is a lot of work. To be able to influence policy is really difficult. So sometimes Black people are not even invited to have a seat, to be able to have conversations that actually influence like what's going to happen. So because they're not even a part of it, then of course when all these things come out, there's still going to be a gap because they're not being included in those conversations to begin with. And it's all starting from like being able to use the knowledge that we have, because I think there's so much knowledge within like the Black community, and the way that knowledge is shared is quite different. So being able to find a way to tap into that and use that knowledge and those resources to make them a bit more mainstream, to be able to share them on like a global scale, I guess.
Sure.
Yeah.
And sorry. And then I feel like the way we're also portrayed in movies, TV shows, reality TV shows, especially like
not reality.
There's so many situations like for Love Is Blind example, or Too Hot to Handle, where the Black woman is always portrayed as like not wanted, but also like having to put on a show, like when they're not wanted, having to put on the show, like, oh, it doesn't really matter. Like, I don't care. Like, I'll find someone else. And then that also shows the strong Black women narrative where we aren't allowed to feel emotion. Like, I can't remember the last time, like, I've even seen a Black woman, like, actually put to tears, like, actually trying to break down. I'm pretty sure they cut off all those situations, like, when they're in TV shows or movies and stuff like that. So we don't really see that in the movies, or even, like, in shows, like, when we're little kids, and then we're accustomed to that as we're growing up. So, changing that.
Also help. Right. Because that's what we're consuming. Like, that's we watch this stuff every day. And if the people that we're looking at are not, you know, someone literally like push you to the side and you're fine, maybe I should be fine about it, if that makes sense. And it just like messes it up for everyone. So the media does do a lot of manipulation and influencing when it comes to just creating these notions. But I think this is a good place to start the conversation, because I hope people listen and like just learn and look more into it and be more mindful of the work that they're doing. I think particularly for survivors, as with everyone else, I think it's important that survivors know that they're allowed to feel things, like experiencing trauma, experiencing pain. You're allowed to feel whatever feels comfortable for you. You're allowed to share whatever feels comfortable for you. You shouldn't have to hide your pain or hide your whatever you're going through, because you're allowed as much as anybody else to feel all these things.
Absolutely.
And that's what Project Agape is all about.
That's what Project Agape is all about. Agape, did you want to talk about the books that we want to leave people with?
Yes, sure. So there's two resources that I found online. That's Joan Morgan. I don't know if anyone's heard of her. I know that you've heard of another author named Patricia Hill Collins.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really know much about her, but they have these two pieces of literature. A book is called When Chicken Heads Come Home to Roost by Joan Morgan.
Mm-hmm.
And this she discussed her experiences as a Black woman and her relationship with hip hop feminism in that book. I haven't read it, but I did read like some pages of it, and amazing. And there's also a chapter called The Strong Black Woman. So you should dive deep into that if you want to learn more about the prejudice that come with that. And then there's also You Have to Show Strength by Patricia Hill Collins, and it explores the control of pop culture, like we were talking about, on the confining Black womanhood to the negative stereotypes. So you can read more about that in that as well for more information on that.
Yeah. I also had one more resource. Not Patricia, sorry, Lydia Collins is this amazing author, which we're actually going to be having the privilege, just, like a little, what is it? Insight into Project Happy. We're going to work with Lydia Collins this summer. But Lydia Collins is a writer, has written a lot of books. And there's this book that she brought out recently called Angry Black Women. And basically it seems like it's a very angry book, but it really isn't. It is a book where Black women talk a lot about their feelings and just our ways of expression, and it's affordable. It's $10. I bought it at an art show the other day, and I read it cover to cover on my way home. Absolutely beautiful. And each page is like a picture of like one of Lydia's friends or like community members, which I thought was a really nice ode to Black women. That is the book. If there's any other resources you think are great, you can DM us. We love to put these out there. We didn't get to all our conversation pieces today because you can talk about this for hours on end. But we hope that we're able to leave you with some thoughts, some knowledge, some things to think about going forward into your lives, and know that you are able and you're willing and you're capable of being who you want to be and being who you deserve to be, and you're deserving of good care, good health care, and you're deserving of everything. And we should not let systemic racism or untrue notions that society has set for us take that away from us.
Absolutely.
Thank you for joining us, Joyce, and
thank you for having me.
And Agape, welcome to Product Agape's podcast.
I'm so excited.
Our new co-host. Thank you for listening, and we hope to see you next time.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay, so I just need 5 seconds of silence to help capture the noise. I can the audio sound better.
Okay.
Okay, guys. So you're co-hosting it?
Yeah.
And then you're just guesting today?
I'm guesting.